A poor mechanic fixed a stranger's car for free. Days later, the stranger offered him $2 million. The rain had been falling over the small town of Millbrook since late afternoon. By 9 o'clock, most businesses along the main street had closed their doors. The streets were nearly empty. The sidewalks were shining under the yellow streetlights, and the sound of rain hitting metal roofs filled the quiet night. But one small garage was still open. The sign above the entrance read, "Martin's Auto Repair." The paint was old and faded. One of the letters in the word repair had fallen off years ago, and the garage door made a terrible screeching sound whenever it opened. Inside, a 34-year-old mechanic named Daniel Carter was finishing the last repair of the day. Daniel wiped his hands with an old towel and looked at the clock. 9:18 p.m. He sighed. His stomach was growling. He hadn't eaten since lunch. On the workbench beside him sat an envelope containing his week's remaining money. $47. That was everything he had. The rent on his small apartment was due in 2 days. His electricity bill was overdue. His mother needed medication, and his old pickup truck desperately needed new tires. Daniel had been struggling financially for years, but he never complained. He had learned mechanics from his father, who had owned the garage before him. His father used to say, "A good mechanic doesn't just fix machines, Daniel. He helps people get their lives moving again." Daniel had never forgotten those words. Even when money was tight, even when customers couldn't pay, even when he was exhausted, he always tried to help. That night, Daniel was about to close the garage when he heard an unfamiliar sound outside. A car engine. He looked through the garage window. A black luxury sedan was sitting on the side of the road. Its hazard lights were flashing. Daniel frowned. He grabbed his jacket and walked outside. The rain immediately soaked his shoulders. He approached the car. A man was sitting behind the steering wheel. He looked to be in his late 50s. His expensive suit was soaked, and he looked frustrated. Daniel knocked on the window. The man rolled it down. "Is everything okay?" "My car died," the man said. Daniel looked at the dashboard. "Battery? I don't know." "Open the hood." The man stepped out. Daniel lifted the hood and began inspecting the engine. After a few minutes, he found the problem. "The fuel pump isn't working." The stranger looked worried. "Can you fix it?" Daniel checked the time. "It'll take a while." "How much?" Daniel hesitated. Normally, the repair would cost several $100s. But he could see the man was stranded. "I'll need to replace a component." The man pulled out his wallet. "I don't have cash." Daniel shook his head. "We can figure that out later." The man stared at him. "You don't even know me." Daniel smiled. "I know what it's like to be stranded." He returned to the garage and began searching for the necessary part. After nearly an hour, he found an old replacement component. It wasn't new, but it would work. Daniel spent another hour repairing the car. By the time he finished, it was almost midnight. He started the engine. It roared to life. The stranger smiled with relief. "You saved me." Daniel closed the hood. "You're good to go." The man reached into his wallet again. "I owe you." Daniel shook his head. "Don't worry about it." The man looked confused. "You worked for 2 hours. It's okay. Let me pay you." Daniel looked at the man's expensive watch, then at his own worn boots. He knew the man could afford it. But something inside him told him not to ask. Just get home safely. The stranger stared at him. "What's your name?" "Daniel." "Daniel what?" "Carter." The man nodded. "I'm Michael." Daniel smiled. "Nice to meet you, Michael." The man shook his hand. "I won't forget this." Daniel laughed. "Most people say that." Michael got back into his car. Before driving away, he lowered the window. "Daniel." "Yes." "Why did you fix my car for free?" Daniel shrugged. "My father taught me something." "What?" "A person who needs help shouldn't have to prove they deserve it." Michael stared at him for a moment. Then he nodded. "I understand." The car disappeared into the rain. Daniel closed the garage. He didn't think about the stranger again. At least, not for a while. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a terrible headache. He had slept for only 4 hours. His phone showed 3 missed calls from his landlord. He knew what that meant. Rent. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed and rubbed his face. He checked his wallet. $47. He looked at the calendar. 2 days. He had 2 days to find enough money. He decided to work harder. He opened the garage at 7. Customers came throughout the morning. A woman needed new brakes. A delivery driver needed an oil change. An elderly man needed his tire repaired. Daniel worked without stopping. At lunchtime, he realized he had forgotten to eat again. He grabbed a cup of coffee and continued working. Around 4 in the afternoon, a young boy came into the garage with his mother. The mother looked embarrassed. "My car won't start," she said. Daniel checked it. The battery was dead. "How much?" Daniel gave her a price. She looked at her son, then back at Daniel. "I only have $20. Daniel smiled. "Give me 10. She looked surprised. "But that's not enough." "It is today." He replaced the battery cable, cleaned the connection, and got the car running. The woman thanked him repeatedly. Daniel watched them drive away. He returned to work. He had no idea someone else had been watching. 3 days passed. Daniel's financial problems became worse. His landlord gave him one final warning. His mother's medication was almost finished. The garage's electricity bill arrived. Daniel sat alone at his workbench that evening. He opened the envelope containing his money. $31. He laughed bitterly. How am I supposed to fix everything with $31? Then he remembered his father's words. A good mechanic helps people get their lives moving again. Daniel smiled. "Dad, I'm trying." Just then, headlights appeared outside. A black SUV stopped in front of the garage. Daniel stood. The door opened. 3 men in suits stepped out. One of them walked toward Daniel. "Are you Daniel Carter?" "Yes." "Mr. Hayes would like to see you." Daniel frowned. "Who is Mr. Hayes?" Before the man could answer, another vehicle arrived. A sleek black sedan. The same sedan Daniel had repaired 3 nights earlier. Daniel's eyes widened. Michael stepped out, but he was dressed completely differently. The soaked suit was gone. He wore an expensive dark suit. His silver hair was perfectly styled. A luxury watch was visible on his wrist, and behind him were several executives. Daniel stared. "Michael." The man smiled. "Hello, Daniel. What are you doing here?" Michael walked toward him. "I came to keep my promise." Daniel laughed nervously. "You said you wouldn't forget." "I didn't." Michael looked around the garage. "This place belongs to you." Daniel nodded. "My father started it." Michael studied the building. "Can we talk?" Daniel looked confused. "Sure." They went into the small office. Michael sat across from Daniel. "I owe you more than the cost of a car repair." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Michael smiled. "That isn't how I see it." Daniel remained silent. Michael placed a folder on the desk. Daniel looked at it. "What is that?" "An offer." "For what?" Michael opened the folder. "Your garage." Daniel's eyes widened. "You want to buy my garage?" "Yes." Daniel immediately shook his head. "No." Michael smiled. "You haven't even heard the offer." "I don't want to sell." "I expected you to say that." Daniel pushed the folder back. "It's my father's garage." "I know." Michael looked at him. "That's why I don't want to destroy it." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Michael leaned back. "My company is called Hayes Automotive Group." Daniel recognized the name. Hayes Automotive was one of the largest automobile companies in the country. They owned repair centers, parts manufacturers, dealerships, and logistics companies. Daniel looked at Michael in disbelief. "You're Michael Hayes?" "Yes." "The Michael Hayes?" Michael laughed. "I suppose there are several." Daniel stared at him. "But why would someone like you drive an old car through a small town?" Michael smiled. "Because I wanted to see how people treated someone who appeared to need help." Daniel's expression changed. "You were testing me?" "Not exactly." Michael looked down. "My father built Hayes Automotive from nothing. He believed that success should never make you forget ordinary people." He paused. "After he died, I became obsessed with expanding the company." Daniel listened. "I stopped visiting my own businesses. I stopped listening to employees. Everything became about numbers." Michael sighed. "So I started traveling anonymously." Daniel looked at him. "And I learned something." "What?" "People treat you very differently when they think you're rich." Daniel nodded. "And when they think you're poor?" Michael smiled. "They either ignore you or try to take advantage of you." Daniel remembered that rainy night. "And you?" "I found you." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do anything special." Michael looked directly at him. "You had $47. Daniel froze. "How do you know?" Michael smiled. "You told your customer earlier that day that you couldn't afford to replace your own truck tires." Daniel remembered. Michael continued. "You still repair my car for free." Daniel looked away. "It was the right thing to do." "Exactly." Michael opened the folder. Inside was a contract. Daniel read the first page. His eyes widened. The offer was for $2 million. Daniel looked up. $2 million? Michael nodded. Daniel pushed the folder away. I can't accept this. Why? Because I fixed a car. No. Michael shook his head. You helped a stranger when you could barely help yourself. Daniel stared at him. Michael continued. I don't want to give you charity. Then what is this? A partnership. Michael pointed to the contract. I want you to become the owner of a new network of community repair centers. Daniel blinked. I don't understand. I want to invest $2 million into your business. Daniel remained silent. You will control the operation. Michael explained that Daniel's garage would become the first location. He would keep the name Martin's Auto Repair. He would train young mechanics. He would provide affordable repairs for struggling families. And every year, a percentage of the company's profits would fund free repairs for people who couldn't afford them. Daniel stared at the contract. You planned all this? I started planning after I met you. Daniel shook his head. I don't know what to say. Michael smiled. Say yes. Daniel didn't sign immediately. He went home that night and sat beside his mother's bed. He told her everything. She listened quietly. Then she smiled. Your father would be proud. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I wish Dad could see this. His mother reached for his hand. He already knows. The next morning, Daniel signed the agreement. 1 year later, Martin's Auto Repair looked completely different. The old building had been renovated. The broken sign was replaced. But Daniel refused to change the name. He wanted his father's memory to remain. The garage now had 12 employees. It also had a special program. Every month, 10 families who couldn't afford repairs received free service. Daniel personally approved every case. He never forgot what it felt like to choose between fixing a car and buying medicine. Michael visited often. Their relationship had become a genuine friendship. One Saturday afternoon, Michael walked into the garage. Daniel was repairing an old pickup truck. You still work with your hands? Michael asked. Daniel smiled. Always. Michael laughed. You're a millionaire now. Daniel shrugged. Still a mechanic. Michael looked around. Do you regret accepting the offer? Daniel looked at the employees, then at the customers, then at the old photograph of his father hanging on the wall. Not for 1 second. Michael nodded. I knew you wouldn't. 6 months later, Daniel received an unexpected letter. It was from a single mother named Sarah. Her car had broken down while she was driving her children to school. She had no money for repairs. Daniel's program fixed the car for free. In the letter, she wrote, I don't know who helped me, but you gave me more than a repaired car. You gave my children a chance to get to school. Daniel read the letter twice. Then he placed it beside his father's photograph. That evening, Michael came by. Daniel showed him the letter. Michael smiled. This is what you were meant to do. Daniel nodded. I think so. 2 years after the rainy night, Daniel stood in front of more than 500 people at the opening of the company's 10th community repair center. Journalists were everywhere. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked him about the $2 million investment. One reporter asked, Daniel, what is the secret to your success? Daniel looked toward Michael, who was standing in the crowd. Then he smiled. Someone once taught me that success isn't about how much you have. The crowd became quiet. It's about what you do when you have very little. He paused. I had almost nothing when I met Michael. Daniel looked at the audience. But I still had enough to help someone. He smiled. And that changed my life. The audience applauded. After the ceremony, Michael approached Daniel. You remember that night? Daniel laughed. The rain? Yes. The broken fuel pump? Yes. The free repair? Michael smiled. All of it. Daniel shook his head. I never imagined that one repair would lead to this. Michael put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. Neither did I. They stood silently for a moment. Then Michael said something Daniel would never forget. You thought you were helping a stranger. Daniel smiled. I was. Michael shook his head. No. He looked at the hundreds of employees and families who had benefited from Daniel's work. You were helping yourself become the man you were always supposed to be. Daniel looked toward the garage. He remembered his father. He remembered the $47 in his wallet. He remembered the rainy night. And he remembered a simple decision. He could have ignored a stranger. He could have told him to call a tow truck. He could have demanded payment. Instead, he chose kindness. And that choice changed everything. The $2 million wasn't really the most important part. The money gave Daniel opportunities, but kindness gave him purpose, and purpose gave him a life worth building. Years later, people would tell the story differently. Some would say a poor mechanic became a millionaire. Some would say a wealthy businessman rewarded a good man. But Daniel always told the story the same way. I didn't become successful because I fixed a rich man's car. He would smile. I became successful because, when I had almost nothing, I still believed I had something worth giving. And every time someone asked him what that something was, Daniel gave the same answer. Kindness. Because sometimes the person you help will disappear forever. Sometimes you'll never see them again. Sometimes you'll receive nothing in return. But once in a while, just once in a while, the stranger you help turns out to be the person who changes your entire life. And even then, the greatest reward isn't the money. It's knowing that when you had the chance to help someone, you chose to help.